Hello, I'm Chris Jarvis. I am the co-creator of 10 Bells, the video game. I'm an indie game developer. My company's called Acrylic Pixel. I'm working on a new little prototype. You play a little spaceship, fly around, you hit into and shoot little pixel aliens, and it shoots out pixelated juice. And then you collect the juice, Luigi's Mansion 3 styley, by sucking it up. Simple concept. So what's the thought behind the idea? Well, Vampire Survivors took the world by storm a few years ago. There's been loads of copycats, loads of people trying to cash in on that trend. I really like the idea of a hyper-casual game with one input and how to make that fun. Vampire Survivors figured out the fun with lots of casino gambly type tricks, bells and whistles basically. And that's something that I don't necessarily want to recreate, but what I wanted to recreate is the essence of fun, interesting gameplay within seconds that's difficult to master as you progress. That is tricky with Vampire Survivors because you kind of tend to start off underpowered and it kind of tends to be tricky and the rounds last a few seconds or up to a minute, and then the more unlocks you get, the more powerful you get and the easier it gets, but the more difficult it gets to get further into the round. So I wanted that sort of mechanic, and I really like the idea of a spaceship where you had the input controls which rotated and moved the ship at the same time. Similar to the Warthog in the Halo series games, but better. That took the most amount of time. I'm in the prototype stage, as I say, and the interesting thing to remember about the prototype stage is that you need to do it as quickly as possible to get to the core of the idea, to see whether or not the game is fun. So there's two ways you can go. You can either go like a visually appealing prototype, that's something that looks visually appealing, that might appeal to people on the internet. Oh, that looks interesting, what's that? Or you go a more crunchy, game devy prototype that feels good to play, so you know you've got good bones to build upon. This little space game is kind of somewhere in between. I'm very conscious that I need it to be visually appealing quite quickly, but also I want it to be crunchy and feel nice to play quickly on the spot without much sort of learning the ropes, as it were. I used to work on this game before I worked on 10 Bells. Back then it was called NovaJet, and I was going for a kind of N64 style aesthetic, and I added spiders to the game, and it just wasn't really coming together. It wasn't feeling great, and it was kind of janky. And so since 10 Bells, this is my spare time project, what I'm doing just on the side, it didn't quite come together, and so I've kind of started from scratch, kind of started with the character controller, and spent days trying to get that feeling really good because I had a problem with the input and found out that I needed to have a dead zone after you go diagonally with the keyboard input. Originally my idea was going to be, oh, everyone's going to play this with a joystick. Everyone that's got an Xbox or a Bluetooth controller is going to go on Steam and play with their joystick. After 10 Bells came out, we learned that the majority of people that play games, if they can play on a keyboard, they will play on a keyboard. So therefore, this is a optional extra to use the Gamepad if they want to. I'll still optimize it for a gamepad, but they need to be able to play it on a keyboard without it feeling janky. I've got the dead zone happening on the diagonals, and now it feels nice and crunchy. I've then sort of leaned into the rigid body kind of thing, and if you know about game dev, that's basically like physical momentum and physical movement. It's using mass and gravity to create the illusion of real world movement and mass and volume. And so I thought then, the game feels really good when you're hitting this mace, like an object that's attached to the spaceship, into the enemies and they go flying. So that's kind of fun to see the enemies go flying. So that's kind of become a core aspect to the game where you fly around and you can shoot people, but you can also hit them with this mace object, I'm calling it a mace, as you're flying around. So that's where I am currently in the prototype stage. I'm going to sort of put it out there, put some feelers out there and see what people think. If they have any ideas, thoughts or feelings on the game, and see what interest I can drum up basically. So I'm going to relaunch my Patreon, so you can join me on there if you're interested in this game. Hasn't got a name yet, so you can help me out with suggestions there. I was thinking Space Mace, Mace Ship. It used to be called NovaJet. I'm going to try and do some YouTube videos more often, so I'm going to try and put some videos out there chronicling my journey through releasing an indie game with 10 Bells, working on my next game, and industry stuff, indie game development stuff. 2024 has been an absolute nightmare for most indie devs. This morning, another studio closed down, and we're not at the end of the year yet, so it really is survive till 25, so I might put some videos up about that. Might put some videos up about how 10 Bells went. Let me know if that's the sort of thing you want to see be interested in and find out more about. So until then, yeah, I'll see you in the next one.